When someone says, let's go to church, what comes to your mind? Is it this? Or this? Or even this? So, which one is it? Depending on a religious background, the term church can mean different things to different people. According to some studies, there are anywhere from 200 to 35,000 Christian denominations and independent churches globally. Each claims to have their own traditions, their own set of beliefs and rules of operation and membership. Some have as little as 10 members, while others have millions. You know who else would like to have 1 million subscribers? We would. So if you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell, because you never know. One day, we might just reach the 1 million mark. Okay, so coming back to the plethora of churches, they all have their own version of what a Sunday service should look like. But what they do have in common is that each of these churches claim to be the true Christian church and that all the rest are just fakes. The people are misguided, the pastors share false teachings, or that they just don't have the right credentials to make them the true church. So, how can each of these hundreds or even thousands of churches all be true at the same time? They can't. Only one can claim to be the real true church established by Christ. But with so many denominations and interpretations of Christianity, how do we identify the true church? To answer this, let's look at some characteristics or marks the true church would need to have. So the first mark of a true church would obviously be its connection to Jesus, literally. The church should be able to trace its way back through history all the way to the apostles and then to Christ himself. There's a popular pic on the internet that shows a few churches, the year they were founded and their founder. While all the other churches can claim to be founded on the teachings or rather their interpretation of Jesus' teachings, only the Catholic Church can actually trace its way back through apostolic succession to the time of the apostles and to Jesus Christ himself. All the other churches broke off from the Catholic Church at some point in history. So the first mark of a true church is its connections back to the apostles and Jesus. Okay, now what else could characterize the true church? Let's see what Jesus had to say. In the Gospels, there are 2 instances where Jesus mentions the word church. These can be found in Matthew chapter 16 and 18. In these passages, Jesus says that he would build a church, and he also tells the apostles how the church would help its members handle issues or disagreements. First, they would try to sort it out by themselves, then in front of a group of witnesses, and finally take it to the church. And if that person disagrees with the church, then they are essentially treated as outsiders and removed from the church. Remember, Jesus said this before his resurrection and before the apostles began actively preaching the gospel to the Gentiles. So at this point, they were still pretty much considered as people you shouldn't be hanging out with. Now, of course, the apostles were part of the church that Jesus built. They were, after all, responsible for passing on the teachings and traditions that Jesus taught. And this can be seen in their writings to the churches across the Roman Empire. For example, St. Paul writing to his disciple Titus or to the church of the Thessalonians. So, they too followed Jesus' command to separate people who, though they might have called themselves followers of Christ, were actually causing division and confusion through their false teachings or their refusal to believe in the truth as taught by Christ's church. You might have noticed that in the New Testament, there are letters addressed to different churches. Here, the different churches like the church in Rome or the church in Philippi or the church in Corinth don't refer to multiple churches with different belief systems. It just meant the body of believers, members of the mystical body of Christ, the church in that specific location. St. Paul reaffirms this in his letter to the Corinthians. St. Paul emphasized that even though different apostles or their disciples might have physically preached and established churches in different areas, they don't become different churches since they all have the same mind, meaning they all follow the same teachings and beliefs. The last mark of the true church would be its holiness. Of course, this doesn't mean that all the members of the church are automatically perfect and sinless. You could randomly pick a church from that long list of denominations and find that every church has maybe a messy history, problematic pastors, or scandals. So, how is a church holy? The church is sanctified by Jesus through grace. So, how do we obtain that grace? through the sacraments. The sacraments are the visible sign of the invisible grace of God. So any church that does not have the sacraments would not be able to receive the fullness of grace that empowers the church to be holy and to make others holy. So how would you identify the true church that Jesus told his apostles he would build? It should be unified, it should be holy, and it should be universal, since Jesus told his disciples to make disciples of all nations, and it should trace back its origin to the apostles. Or in other words, it must be one, holy, Catholic and apostolic. Okay, I know what you're thinking. We didn't just slide in the word Catholic there. The word Catholic comes from the Greek word katholikos, which means regarding the whole or general or universal. The only church that is one, holy, Catholic and apostolic is the Catholic Church. So, what do you think about this? Do you think these are the only marks of the true church, or are there any other marks? Let us know in the comments below. And if you like this video, let us know by liking and subscribing to our channel. It really helps us a lot. Until next time.